You're tuned in to the Leadership Signal. Hello there. Thank you for tuning into the Leadership Signal, the podcast for voice actors, creative professionals, and smallish businesses. I'm your host, Rob Sogamonian. You might notice I look a little different on this episode. Every so often, I get super fed up with my beard and I shave it off. I personally prefer a smooth face, but I know the beard looks better, so I do grow it from time to time. Just to keep up expectations, I guess. I don't mind it that much, to be perfectly honest with you, but I do like, especially in the hot summer months, giving myself a little bit of a hair's cut, if you will. On this episode of the Leadership Signal, I want to highlight the fact that last week we did not have an episode of the Leadership Signal, and there was an intent behind that. You are going to fail, and you are going to need times off. You're going to need breaks. You're going to need to give yourself permission to take those breaks because, especially if you're in a leadership role, if you are running a business or starting a business or a leader in a business, it's very, very easy to get kind of sucked into the I must be working all the time mentality. It's a Saturday, it's a Sunday, it's a holiday weekend or something like that. And you have some time to yourself, and then you start thinking about your personal projects, your business projects, your anything that you're kind of involved in at a leadership level. And some people don't have that issue. Many people can just kind of disconnect and do nothing, or play video games, or watch a movie, or hang out with friends. And yet, there is a good portion of us, especially if we're in leadership roles, where it's hard to turn that off. And I got to tell you, you have to turn it off. You have to take those breaks. You have to, let's go into the real estate career as kind of an example. There are a lot of memes, and I'm sure you've seen them, where it's like being on vacation with a realtor, and it's somebody in the background looking a little bit annoyed that the person who's in the foreground is still on their phone, presumably working on something. As an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, as a creative professional, very often we are the ones also holding our phones or on our laptops or producing something. Because every free minute or every time you have a really cool idea, you think you got to jump in and work on it because you've only got so much time, especially if you're balancing like a survival job and your creative job. And so any spare moment you have, you kind of tend to gravitate towards working on creative endeavors. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, although if you don't take time to give yourself rest, give yourself a break of some sort, you will very quickly you're flirting with burnout is really what it ends up coming down to. So I purposely did not produce an episode last week to kind of emphasize that, hey, you know what? If you need a week off, take a week off. People are still going to be there. You might have a couple people reach out and say, hey, it's a Monday, you haven't posted yet, just letting you know. Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm not posting anything this week, I'm taking it off, or whatever the case may be. You may even just run out of time. Don't stress about stuff like that. Now, if it is something that is super important, you should take every effort you can to make sure that you're done with it before you get to the point that you need to defer it or, postpone the release or something like that. Or if it's an audition or something, I get that. But don't spend every waking moment of your life working. I am also not in shape right now, but when I am in shape, I tend to do Ironman triathlons, half Ironmans, full Ironmans. I love endurance racing because it's me against me, and it's really kind of mind over matter stuff, or mindset over physical fitness, I guess. But even the professional athletes, people who do Ironmans, ultra marathons, unless you're David Goggins, tend to take breaks. They'll go and they'll train, and then they'll have a recovery period. They'll have a weekend where they're doing long runs, long bikes, long swims, and then they'll have not necessarily days of nothing, not necessarily days off, although those aren't detrimental. Those are definitely beneficial, but they'll always take some time off to recover. They have to. Your muscles can only go for so long, and your brain, when you're thinking about creative endeavors or business stuff, also needs time off. You need to be able to disconnect from what you're working on and have some time to yourself, whether that's reading, whether that's laying in bed, doing nothing. I don't want to say doom scrolling because you can doom scroll, but that's not necessarily beneficial. But maybe watching like an educational video on YouTube or something like that, or just a documentary, or just something funny and fun. A lot of my hobbies, when I'm not working, I play Dungeons and Dragons. 2 nights a week. One night I go out and I play at a friend's house. He's the game master and he puts everything together, and I'm just a player. Another night during the week, I'm a game master and I run my own game here at my place. And I have a bunch of friends come over. They all bring food. We've got some drinks and we play a good game. I play video games, not as much as I used to. I used to play a lot more. But I play all kinds of stuff. I play real-time strategy games, Red Alert, Supreme Commander. Right now we're playing Age of Empires 2 again because it's fun. It's just something to take your mind off of what you're working on all the time and get you into a different kind of frame of mind, mindset, thinking pattern, and it gives you that much needed break so that when you jump back into doing whatever it is that you do as your primary gig or as your creative gig, or maybe they're both the same thing, which is great. Congratulations. But it gives you that reset. It gives you that little bit of a break. Very similar to, I could draw all kinds of similarities to taking breaks, but things like eating. You stop eating around 7 o'clock, you go to sleep, you don't eat all night, and you're kind of like resetting your digestive system. You're resetting what your body is doing as far as processing food overnight as you're fasting overnight. And then when you wake up, you break fast, you break your fast. You need those resets. If you ate constantly, you would probably have diabetes and probably get very, very large and have more issues than benefits. So if you are at a position where you feel like you're making no progress or slow progress, just understand that that is completely normal. Anything worth doing is going to take time. And that's something that society has kind of, unfortunately, for better or for worse, coached us into thinking is a problem. A lot of us have very low thresholds of patience. We don't want to work towards what the end result is. A lot of people kind of make the end result the goal. But then what happens when you get to that end result? When you finally get there, you just have to set another goal. It's not like when you get there, you're done, right? And that's kind of what we talked about on the last podcast with things being almost an infinite game. There is no winning. So if you need time off, take time off. The tasks will be there for you when you jump back in. Now, on the flip side of that, you don't want to say, okay, I'm going to take time off. I'm just going to do nothing for a year. That probably will have, everything in moderation. That'll probably have negative benefits because you'll probably get fired if you're working for somebody. You probably won't have any kind of creative work coming in if you're doing auditions or any kind of voice acting or, media production or anything like that. But, we can't work 24/7. So take a day, do nothing. Take a couple of days and, get some chores done. Get involved in something that's more fun than work, but give yourself grace to take those times off. Give yourself grace to fail. If you are, like in the case of this podcast, if I don't have time during a week to get an episode out, episode's not going to go out, and I'm okay with that. Last week was a One Voice conference out in Dallas, Texas, and it was a lot of fun. Met a lot of really cool people. Got to meet a couple of really cool agents. Very, very fun event. Learned a ton. Got a lot of networking done out of it. And if you follow me on any of my socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, you probably saw a lot of Sogo selfies, which is something that I do when I go to conventions. It's what I did when I went to real estate conventions. It's what I do now going to voiceover conventions. And yeah, I got a lot out of it. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to produce an episode. And I am producing these week to week. I don't have a backlog. So if I don't get an episode out, it's because I didn't have time to film it that week. And that's fine. Like, that's normal. As long as it doesn't become detrimental to the mission, well, even then, if not taking a break is if you not taking a break is the only thing that's going to keep your endeavor from failing, then you probably need to look at your time management and figure out how you can maybe even space things further out so that the achievable bites are realistic, or engage other people to help you, whether that's paid or unpaid if you need to do unpaid. But you have to give yourself grace to be able to take some of that time off, take some of those moments for yourself, and be okay with not winning 100% of the time. Because number one, failure is where we learn. Number two, you can't really ultimately fail unless you give up. So as long as you're not giving up, and as long as you're being smart about moving forward, everything will end up working out in the end. So that's really all for this episode of the Leadership Signal. Next episode, we're going to finally start digging into our why and how we get there, how you kind of figure out why you're doing what you're doing if you haven't figured that out already. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. So thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Leadership Signal. Whether you're here at the beginning of your journey or somewhere kind of further along the path, I'd love you to tune in and let you help me guide you along the way. If you'd enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on Apple or Spotify and consider subscribing to the podcast in your listening app of choice, or should be on all apps across the universe. If you'd like to submit any questions, comments, or suggestions, please send me an email, podcast@theleadershipsignal.com. Some questions I might even cover on future episodes if they're relevant to the topics that we're talking about. And if you submit an email and I like it and I want to kind of cover it, I'm going to reach out to you and I'm going to say, hey, I'd love to cover this question on an episode of my podcast. And maybe if it's a good enough question, maybe it needs some discourse or dialogue going on, I might even invite you on to come onto the podcast too and discuss it. You can tell me you're not okay with that. I'm not going to force you. If I'm like, hey, this would be a great collaboration, you're like, I don't do camera work. Cool. I'm happy to just kind of chat about it myself. But, depending on what you ask and where we are in the content cycle, I'd love to talk about stuff with you. So we do have that email address at theleadershipsignal.com. Website's not quite ready yet. Again, it's a time issue. So for me, it's having to get in there and build the website, put everything together, and make it interesting and have enough content to keep people wanting to come back for more. That is under construction. Just keep an eye out here, keep an ear out here, and I'll let you know when that's ready. But until next time, we will see you again next week. Thank you for tuning into the Leadership Signal. Tune in and amplify your voice. I'm Rob Sogomonian. Talk to you later.